And here's the cool thing. Every time you do something, it counts forever. And I can prove it. Did you know there was one guy who made one move 140 years ago that has us in here tonight like we are? One guy, a 34-year-old school teacher who made one move 140 years ago that has our nation operating as it does within the purview of the world. His name was Joshua Chamberlain. He was a school teacher, but at this point in his life, he was a colonel in the Union Army. Now, he wasn't a colonel because he knew anything about battle strategy or military tactics. He was a colonel because he was the first guy from his hometown to volunteer. He was the first guy in the recruiting office. They said, thank God we have a colonel. Next two guys through are majors. I mean, that's pretty much how it went. They placed this guy 3/4 of the way up a hill on July 2nd, 1863. And they said, you cannot leave here. They said, whatever you do, don't leave this location. They said, the enemy will try to breach our line through you. And if they come through you, they'll gain the high ground. If they gain the high ground, they'll come down on us from behind and wipe us all out. They said, you are the extreme left edge of this line of 80,000 men that runs from you all the way into this town over here called Gettysburg. So Chamberlain and his men of the 20th Maine spent the entire morning, early afternoon, laying up a rock wall. I've been there. It's like thigh high, about 110 yards long, over a gentle rise, big stone right in the middle. And at 2:30 in the afternoon, the 15th and 47th Alabama came up that hill, and Chamberlain and his men of the 20th Maine pushed them back. The 15th and 47th Alabama charged again and again. And on the fourth charge, Chamberlain took a bullet dead center in the belt buckle, knocked him down. He realized he wasn't hurt, got back up, kept fighting again, pushed him back down the hill a fourth time. On the fifth charge, fighting was on both sides of the wall. They made it to the wall. And man, these guys, that black powder smoke, you couldn't tell what was happening, who was who, and they were swinging at each other and throwing stuff. Finally, they disentangled, pushed them back down the hill to find they were out of ammunition and down to 80 men. They'd started in Bangor, Maine 6 months earlier with 1,000 men. They'd started that morning with 300. Now they're down to 80 and out of ammunition. Chamberlain's brother came over, Tom, and he said, we're leaving, right? And Chamberlain said, no, Tom, we're not going anywhere. And as Tom walked off, there's a great quote that came from that fight. They had another brother there whose name was James. He was a medic. And as Tom walked off, Chamberlain said, find your brother. Tell him to keep his head down. With 3 of us here, this could be a bad day for Mother. Tozier came up, the old battle sergeant. He said, sir, shall I sound the retreat? And he said, Sergeant, we will not be retreating. He said, sir, we're out of ammunition. He said, have the men gather ammunition from the dead and the wounded. And Tozier said, we did that last time. We're out. Before anybody could come up with anything to do or any idea, a kid had climbed a tree. You moms, think about this, a 12-year-old boy traveling with this group of men. He was their lookout, climbed a poplar tree, and the kid said, they're reforming. They're being reinforced. And sure enough, they looked down the hill into a meadow on the left, and a Texas division was coming over to join the 2 Alabama groups. And the kid said, here they come! And up the hill they came, firing their weapons, stopping behind trees to reload, coming back out, firing again with that wild, weird, high-pitched shriek, that rebel yell. You know, you won't find it in any history book, but it's a fact that the first time the Yankees fought the Confederates, wherever they fought, the Yankees ran when they heard the rebel yell because it sounded like crazy people. I mean, you think about it. You fight anybody, but you don't want to fight a crazy person, do you? And here's Chamberlain's brother back saying, do something, say something. They're right here. Make a move. And Chamberlain said, fix bayonets. They looked at him like he was the crazy one. He said, fix bayonets. And up and down the line, you could hear the steel on the steel as these guys laid their knives on their empty weapons. Then Chamberlain turned to Tozier and he said, have the men execute a great right wheel. Swing the left first. Do it now. Lieutenant Melcher had just walked up. He was the flag bearer. He said, what's a great right wheel? And Tozier said, it's a charge. This man's fixing to charge. And before anybody could stop him, Chamberlain jumped up on the wall. He swung his sword down the hill and he said, charge, charge, get him! And they poured over the wall into a history most of the people in our country hadn't even heard. Because 80 men without ammunition, 80 men captured over 400 of the enemy.